This to happen, town meeting has to approve us going to the South Shore Regional Technical Vocational, and then 6 out of the 8 districts that are there now, which Abington, Cohasset, Hanover, Hanson, Norwell, Rockland, Situate, and Whitman, 6 out of those 8 have to say yes, town of Marshfield can come there. There are some cost, two things that the town will have to consider. One is they have a stabilization fund, would have to do our share of the stabilization fund. I believe, just off the top of my head, it's about $392,000 is our share. We have 10 years, so that's $39,210 for 10 years for us to put our share of money in there to let us carry it out that long. And then, like anything else, if they have some interest going to the School Building Association to build a new school, then the town would have to do their share of it, so.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Question? Name and address, please.
Joe Pasevich, Wilson Road. As far as I understand, the South Shore Regional Voc Tech is right now putting together an expansion plan. Has anybody looked into what it's going to cost, what our share of the expansion plan is going to be in terms of cost? And
Okay.
also, part 2 is for each student that goes over to South Shore Vocational Tech, how does that potentially affect the budget of the Marshfield schools?
Okay, because Jeff and Tom, I'm not sure if Michael has that answer. Do you have that answer, Michael?
Not to answer it fully, I'm not that well versed, but to Mr. Pasevich's thing, he's correct. There would be a cost if they build a new high school. I don't know what it is because we don't know what the cost is. That's the long-range plans, that they want to build a bigger facility to accommodate all the other communities that are in presently, that there seems to be an uptick in the amount of kids that want vocational training.
Gotcha. I mean, I would suggest calling Tom Miller or save your question for town meeting.
Yeah, part 2 of my questioning was whether or not they would see, how would that affect the school budget and the staffing in the local schools if we get 140, 150, or whatever students sent over to South Shore Vocational Tech. Any thought on that?
Michael, do you have a thought on that?
Even if they build a new school, I don't think we'd have those numbers. I mean, right now, we're sending, from my conversations with the superintendent and assistant superintendent, we're, some years, so we get what's ever left. Normally, we have like 10, maybe 12, maybe 15 kids that are looking, and we get 3, maybe 4, some years 5 seats. So it's not a massive cost. I don't know how the actual cost breaks down, you know, so I wouldn't be able to fully answer that question, Mr. Pasevich.
Gotcha. That's okay, Mr. Pasevich? Gotcha. Great, thank you. Seeing no more questions from the floor, we're going to move on to Article 3, which is a personal bylaw Schedule A and B. Michael?
So this is an update. We've added an upgrade in the benefits manager, and in Schedule B, we've added the assistant social day manager and assistant food service manager.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor?
Question. Would it be possible to get the current schedules
Sure,
before
yeah.
advisory board votes on this?
Yep.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any more questions from the floor? Seeing none, Article 4, transfer from free cash line items. Michael?
So this is a free cash distribution, and we have $300,000 for the preschool repairs at 255 Furnace. We have structural repairs that we need to do at Town Hall. This is different from the renovations that we're doing. As folks know, Town Hall opened in 1970. When Town Hall opened, the floor requirement for any place that you have a gathering was 50 pounds per square foot. It's now 100 pounds per square foot. So we'll have to add some structural steel, so we're in the process. We're going out to bid, and that will be an approximate cost. We have on here additional costs for a sidewalk machine. DPW ordered some sidewalk machines, and like with everything else, costs have exceeded what was available for funds, so this will close the gap for them. DPW unpaved road repairs, $70,000. Beach bus, this has been talked about to ease traffic in the summer, to take folks that don't have beach stickers, pick them up at Governor Winslow or Daniel Webster, and then or from the Brant Rock parking lot and dropped them at one of the beaches, and so that's a cost. That with a grant that the chamber got would cover that for, some Fridays, Saturdays and Sundays in June, July, and August, and then, ceasing on Labor Day weekend. Fire locker room design, as folks know, we've upgraded 3 years ago. We upgraded the kitchen in the fire station. It was, one of the original kitchens. The bathrooms are so decrepit that the water's come through the timbers, so we have to do a major overhaul on the bathroom. The $75,000 is to get it designed and scoped out. Additional costs on the electric truck, we're still waiting. Town meeting approved the electric pickup truck for the building department. Cost has risen. It's now $18,300 more dollars will be needed. Treasurer collector professional services. Elections, part-time salaries, $28,000. Election expenditures, $12,000. Utilities, oil, gas, and electric utilities, an additional $50,000. Fire ambulance supplies, $185,000. And fire full-time salaries, $38,000. That's to cover retirement of a firefighter that's going to retire. That will cover his vacation and time that we owe him.
Right.
And for a total of $1,217,866.
Great. Thanks, Michael. Questions from the floor? Yes.
Joe Pasevich, Wilson Road, on the structural repairs at Town Hall. I'm not against something like that. Anytime you're on the second floor of Town Hall, just jump around, you can feel the floor bounce. But it seems to me that there's structural repair going on right now. So is this in addition to the structural repair that's going on right now? Or is the structural repair going on now and then we're just trying to cover it retroactively?
Michael, do you have the answer to that
Yes,
question?
I can answer that question, Mr.
Please
Chair.
do.
First of all, Mr. Pasevich, thank you for recognizing the sway in the floor. The structural repairs, there are no structural repairs now. There's remodeling, 6 new bathrooms, and a new chamber, and some other cosmetic updates. We're going to be doing some expansion for the Veterans Office and moving a couple of other offices around. That's not structural. The structural, this is going to actually, if you come into Town Hall, Mr. Pasevich, and go down to where the clerk is, the clerk is being impacted, accounting's being impacted, and a small portion of our IT room is being impacted. They're going to actually put steel braces. The steel that's there and the spacing is based on, I told you, the 50 pounds per square foot. We now, because we're doing a renovation, we have to meet the code, so we have to be at 100 pounds. So that's why the extra steel has to go in. It's tough to get somebody. We went out to bid. Hopefully, we'll have somebody and can get that done, between now and July.
Great, thank you. All set? Great.
Question?
Go ahead.
Mike, on the
Yes.
bus, 1, what kind are we gonna get? 2, what kind of hours, and who's gonna drive it?
It's through a bus service, so we don't have any liability. So the people that we're looking at is the Topman Buses.
Yep.
Folks know Martha's sick, so we're dealing with the other young lady that runs it. GATRA, and we're going to try one other. I'd like to get 3. So they would drive the buses. We're looking at, like I said, Saturdays and Sundays, June, July, August, ending on Labor Day weekend.
Perfect.
From like 9 to 6, probably, something like that.
Okay, thanks. No, it's a good
You're welcome.
service.
Absolutely.
Great. Hold on a second. Don, you had a question?
I did. Don Gibson, 815 Union Street, Town Moderator. Mr. Chairman, I have a question where it says transfer to, the final column. I anticipate questions from the floor as when it says special article. Can we have some explanation as to what is meant by special article and what is meant by these numeric designations of additional articles? Are these new articles coming in another section of either the special town meeting or annual town meeting, or what?
Great, thank you. Michael, do you have that answer?
So, Mr. Chairman, I'll answer the first one. The ones with the numbers of a tie-in to the GL number. And then for the special articles explanation, I'm going to ask Ian to answer that question.
The special
Town accountant.
articles are a fund, a special fund in the general ledger, designated by O2. It's reserved for free cash capital projects. But the accounts haven't been created yet because the money hasn't been voted yet. So there's no GL account associated with it until the vote has been solidified.
Okay, may I have a follow-up
You
question?
may.
Does that mean that, for example, let's take number one, preschool repairs, when it's transferring $300,000 a special article, does that have to be an article involving the schools or repairs to the school, or can it be used for anything?
No.
It's whatever the description is in the request.
So I can, Mr. Chairman, so I'll take it from
Yeah,
here.
please.
Thank you. And, Mr. Moderator, that is $300,000 for things that have to physically be done at 255, so they only can spend it at 255, and it's to address some of the deficiencies in that building before they can open in September.
Right, so if someone from the floor then wanted to move that money for another purpose, we couldn't do that, correct?
I would defer to town council on that answer.
The money's been appropriated for this purpose. If it's a different purpose, it's beyond the scope.
That's, yeah, I just want to make sure, because I
They
anticipate.
could reduce the funding, they could increase it nominally, but for some other purpose, no.
Okay. Final question, can you explain the relationship between item number 7, which is, building additional, I'm sorry, you think I could read here. Number 3, additional cost sidewalk machines in that particular article, but then you go down to Article 5, and they talk about an additional $7,630 for supplemental funding and purchase of one sidewalk machine. Why are they not together, or how would I explain that to the town meeting members?
Where's the 7,000?
Number 3.
It's number 3. Mr. Chairman, did you want me to respond to that?
Don's talking about the next
so
article,
number-
Article 5.
Oh, he's talking about Article 5?
Well, Article 5 has money for a sidewalk machine, and then there's also that
It's a
816,
DPW article, so
565.
we'll let, DPW can answer that question.
Yes, Tom?
Article 5 is a consolidation of previous capital articles. The total was $24,190. We had given money to buy 4 pieces of equipment because of the delay from the time of town meeting and when we actually were able to put the order in July. Prices went up. January 1st, they went up, and they went up again in April. So it was a total of 24,000. So that 7,630 is a consolidation of 2 previous capital articles. And then the free cash is Article 5. No, I'm sorry, 5 is the article for the consolidation of the capital, and Article 4, that money is from free cash for a total of $24,190.
All right, so that's the total amount that would be spent on these additional sidewalk machines. Thank you very much.
And just to be, it's not an additional, it's, Mr. Moderator, it's to cover the shortfall from what it was estimated to cost to what it actually cost.
Fair enough. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Great. Hold on a second. Mark?
No, I had a question about the preschool repairs, which he answered.
Okay, great, thanks. Recognize?
That wasn't, I just.
Name and address, please.
Karen, 3 Rutland Road, Chair of the Board of Public Works. What Tom provided was written in the text explanation with the fact that it's combining the 2 funds, one from item 3 and 4 and Article 5. So it is there in the text.
Okay, great, thank you. Any further questions from the floor? Yes, sir.
So, Joe, so what is the ultimate total cost of the electric truck going to be?
Michael, do you have that answer, or Tom?
Are you asking about the electric pickup truck for the building department or the additional cost for the sidewalk machine?
The building truck on the building department?
I believe it's 88,000 and change.
Any further questions from the floor? Seeing none?
I do have one question.
Go ahead.
That 88,000, that's total cost of the original?
Total cost, yeah.
So will we
as of
put-
right now.
It's locked in.
It's locked in.
So
Okay.
Yeah,
that-
we-
that
I've
went
been
up
told
by-
it's locked in.
We did a PO, so it's
Locked in.
So it was 68,000 estimated or something like that.
Okay.
60,000, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Third time's the charm. Seeing no questions from the floor, we're going to move on to Article 5, funding for additional costs of sidewalk machines. Tom, you going to handle that?
Yes, that is, the explanation is, the 16,566 is, to pick up the balance of that 24,000.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, Article 6, funding for additional costs of curbside collection disposal. Tom?
Yes, the current 23 solid waste curbside collection and disposal transportation expense line are estimated during the budget creation, and they're based on volume estimates and expected vendor pricing for collection, recycle, and waste disposal. After the 23 budget was authorized, the contracted collection rate was slightly higher than expected, and disposal volumes continue to exceed expectations.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, moving on to Article 7, funding to demolition structure at 80 Union Street. Tom?
Yeah, these are safety concerns regarding the structural integrity of the building. In addition, the building can serve no purpose for alternative use and has become a security issue regarding public health and safety.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, Article 8, funding for comprehensive wastewater master plan.
Yes, this is, the wastewater treatment comprehensive plan was last updated in '95. The water projections, wastewater projections analyzed through 2015. The purpose of this plan update will be to online future expansion of the collection system, including wastewater treatment plan expansion. There are new Title V changes being proposed by the Department of Environmental Protection that will require advanced treatment of wastewater by individual septic systems in environmentally sensitive areas. The master plan will assist the town in evaluating other sewer alternatives.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, moving on to Article 9, funding for sewer pipe repairs. Tom?
Yes. This one, recent camera investigations of the larger diameter collector sewer pipe located in Surf Ave and portion of both Ocean Street and Plymouth Ave up to the Plymouth Ave pump station has indicated advanced deterioration of the pipe. Relining the pipe with isolated pipe replacement is the most feasible repair option.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, moving on to Article 10, easements for photovoltaic on school building rooftops. Michael?
As folks know, we're putting photovoltaics on the rooftops of all the municipal buildings, carports, and solar array on the cap landfill. In order to do the schools, we need easement. This will, if town meeting approves this, we'll have easement for the utilities to go in and do the work.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, move on to Article 11, easement for utilities at DPW facility. Michael?
This is the same thing. They had a installation of a utility pole, and they needed an easement, so this is part of the construction for the new DPW facility. So we're sort of doing it backwards, the pole's in, but they need an easement. They want an easement saying that they could go in and put it in service, the pole, the wires and anchors, et cetera.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, moving on to Article 12, home rule legislation for additional liquor licenses. Michael?
So this came about, we're out of pouring licenses, so a pouring all alcohol license is just that. You go out to the restaurant, you want to order a cocktail, restaurant that serves you in Marshfield, that's a pouring license we don't have anymore. Why is that important? Well, if anyone wants to open a restaurant in Marshfield, they're not going to do it if there are no licenses. The way you get licenses is that you go through the process, the select board discusses it, takes a vote, and town meeting approves the selectmen to request our legislators to file a home rule petition allowing us to add the licenses. We're requesting 3 pouring licenses, those are for restaurants, and 3 all alcohol package store licenses. Because we have a number of businesses, you'll see Further on, there'll be a private petition article from a business in town that doesn't want to deal with the seasonal licenses. I always get this backwards. It goes from April 15th to January 1st, or April 1st to January 15th.
It goes from January 15th to
Okay.
April 1st.
Thank you, thank you. They don't want to do that, so they filed their own request. When we had a discussion, it's hard to have economic development and ask restaurants to come in if they're not going to, no one's opening a restaurant without a liquor license. So this is here, and if town meeting supports it, then the next step is to have the legislative delegation, Senator O'Connor, Representative Kearney, and Representative, having a mental block. Josh Cutler, file.
Great, thank you.
Question?
Questions from the floor?
I have no problem with the on-premise, but the off-premise, we have 3 seasonals in this town, I believe. Are those gonna be the first 3 accounts that are gonna have a chance for this? Or is it open to the public, like supermarkets or whatever?
Well, people would have to apply, so whoever gets an application in, I think if they see town meeting, I think we'll see some movement on those. The other business, I believe, that filed the petition is Hubbard's Cupboard.
Right, but that's one of
They
the
don't want
3
it-
seasonals.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think it's fair to give another license. I don't think we need another package store license. I think we have enough, but it makes sense to get rid of the 3 seasonals, because years ago, we had a lot of seasonal people living here. Now it's mostly year-round.
Well, we do in the summer, so that's not.
We don't have as
Mr. Chairman,
many
if
as
I
we
may.
used to have.
So population actually goes up from 27,000 to 45,000 in the summer. So we have a number of seasonal licenses. There are businesses that have seasonal licenses. Jackinson's has I think they have, is it alcohol
They have
seasonal?
they have
And
all
beer
alcohol
and wine,
season.
they have full beer and wine, and they have so for 3 months out of the year, he covers up the stuff not to sell it.
Right.
Interesting.
Okay.
All set. Any other questions from the floor? Seeing none, Article 13, land purchase, 2160 Ocean Street. Michael?
Let's see. This is the land purchase. Is that the one you're on?
Yes.
Yes,
13.
Article
So-
13?
Yep, so it's a potential land purpose. It's there because we're close. There are some things that have to be reviewed and a final decision made before town meeting. So I don't want to get too much into it, but that's the potential piece of land that the town has interest in purchasing. We have to go through a process, and we have to see where we are by town meeting.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, Article 14, which is a petition article for an additional all-alcohol package store. Is Valerie Marshfield here? Right, seeing that she's not, we're going to move on. We're going to close out the special town meeting, and we will move on to the annual town meeting. Article 1 is to receive reports from the town officers and committees. Michael?
This is just a standard annual report. It's the book that we put together, and it's never been voted down by town meeting.
Well, we jinxed the hell out of ourselves there. Okay. Any questions from the floor?
Michael, what's the timing on that book?
So it's the previous fiscal year. So it's always one fiscal year behind because the year has to complete itself so people can write about it.
So 22 will come out after July 23?
I'm gonna bring it up here.
Well, this is fiscal, this will be fiscal '22, because we're in fiscal '23 right now.
No, but the book is published.
The book is right now. You'll have it for town meeting.
Okay.
Any other questions from the floor? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to set compensation for elected officials. Michael?
So this is a standard article for all elected officials, and hopefully town meeting will support it.
Great, thank you.
Question?
Question from the floor? Yes.
Michael, I would like you to put together a number, because I want to amend it at town meeting floor, for the selectmen's salaries. I've been asking every year. I think we can afford it. Let's do it and be done with it. They should be the highest paid elected officials. I don't think the assessors should be.
Yeah, I'll talk to my board. It's not a decision they can make right now, though, I'm sure.
No, I'm not expecting it
Yeah.
tonight, but if
Yeah.
you can put a number, otherwise I'm gonna move 10%.
Okay,
But I'd rather have you do it, so you
Okay.
can be,
Yep.
balanced, because it has to go in here and in the budget article.
sure.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the floor? Seeing none, Article 3, fiscal year '24 operating budget. Michael?
So this is why most people, I think, come to town meeting. This is the omnibus budget. It's $109,022,243.
Yeah.
And, I'm not gonna, but if you can see what the costs are. It's, I will have you draw attention to page 7. You'll see the annual town meeting appropriation. There's also senior work-off program that's funded, Cliff Rogers Library, Grad Night Live, South Coastal County Legal Services, North River Wildlife Rehabilitation, Massachusetts Coastal Coalition, Arc of the South Shore, Marshfield Council on Aging Boosters, and there's an application process. They fill it out, and they send us their, if they're a public charity, they send a copy of their 990 and their form that they file with the State Attorney General's office.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, moving on to Article 4, which is the fiscal year '24 capital budget. Is anyone here from the Capital Budget Committee?
I can,
Michael, want to handle
so
that?
it is the capital, so you want to look at the very far column that says, capital budget recommends, and then the funding source tells you it's either, it's borrowed by taxes,
should've.
or it's funded by retained earnings.
Great. Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, moving on to Article 5, revolving fund bylaw. Michael?
So this is just very standard. We have a number of the integrated preschool, turf fields, recreation, beach, GATRA, and senior center services have these accounts, and they have to be approved by town meeting. These are revolving accounts, so they're self-supporting.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, moving on to Article 6, Chapter 90 funds, which would be Tom?
Yes, this is an annual article, pretty much, just so that we can accept the Chapter 90 funding from Mass DOT.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Yes, Dave Carrier?
Gary, Road, I waited for this article because, as you know, we have not had the capital budget approve any funding from the town for our accepted roadways. And I believe that, this is not an adequate funding source, as we all know, for our roadways. And, at town meeting, I fully intend to make the case that we should be funding this amount of money, $200,000. We have many roads that need the attention, and we think from dollars per roadway mile, or for about a quarter mile of total rebuild on a roadway, when we get it from the state, so I think it's quite short.
Okay, great, thank you. Any more questions from the floor? Seeing none, moving on to Article 7, cemetery maintenance and care. Tom?
Yes, this article is a buyback of graves, it's $700. It's based on when they purchased the grave. If you go back 20 years or so, they paid only probably $200 or $300. So this is a more recent grave of $700. So it's just reimbursing the people. They can't sell it themselves, but they can sell it back to the town.
Great. I have a question on that. And then, can somebody from the town buy that lot, or how does that work?
Back into the revenue, into the inventory,
Yeah.
and it's an available grade for some of the purchase.
Okay. Is it typical singles or doubles, or?
Singles usually.
Okay. Great, thank you. Any other questions from the floor? All right, seeing none, Article 8, funding to upgrade Plymouth Ave wastewater pump station. Tom?
Yes, this is a big project this is the current pump station was built in the late 70s and is currently handling 2/3 of the wastewater in the town sewer area. The pumping equipment and the piping, electrical system, controls, HVAC, and emergency generator are all in need of replacement. The concrete tank walls are deteriorated, require concrete repair and grade replacement. The building will be extended to house the generator, and the disinfectant equipment will be brought inside the building, and the building roof and siding will be replaced. Flood protection will be required when the construction is being done, and that needs to installation of the sewer bypass and the new sewer force main will allow the station to be taken offline during construction. Funds will be used to cover the cost of construction, engineering oversight, as well as owner's project manager. The project was approved to be funded through the state revolving fund. The program which will limit the interest rate to 2%, and also we got $2.3 million from ARPA to go towards this.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions from the floor?
Yeah, I have a question, Paul Christopher, George Street. Tom, we spoke about this. Is there a schedule of values available? I mean, you know, engineering, construction, equipment?
Yeah, all that will be available, is available.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just want
You may.
a clarification, just the selectmen from the ARPA funds that we got from the county, they awarded the DPW $4 million, 1.7 for one project, 2.3 for this project.
Okay, great, thank you. Any additional questions from the floor? Seeing none, move on to Article 9, Marshfield Community Media, PEG Access Services. Michael.
So PEG Access, for folks that watch cable TV, public education, and government, this is an article that has to be approved, and the funding gets distributed. This is not coming out of the budget. It's the money that they take in through the cable revenue that gets reapportioned.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, move on to Article 10, amend zoning bylaws, self-storage facilities. Greg.
Greg Dumont, Ice House Lane. Article 10 is to add a new use into the use category for self-service storage facilities. We have a number of them already in town, but we've been doing it by calling it a warehouse. And we've had several other companies call and ask, so we've decided it's time we get that into the table of use as a specific use.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor?
I just have one question.
Mark?
So is this like take the same zones where the warehouse is permitted and just create a line item, or did we limit where the self-storage could go?
It is allowed in the B1, B2, B3, I for industrial district, and by special permit in the water resource protection.
And that doesn't change how we were handling it before when it was?
I think we added it to the B3, and that's because we had one in the B3 near the old BP gas station.
Great.
I call it BP.
Brassica's place.
Yeah. Like where Clark Phillips had all his buses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly, absolutely. Who's a townie? Okay, any questions from the floor?
Just a question. So adding it to the B3, because there's an existing one in a B3 location, does that, how much more does that open up the opportunity? Like, I don't know, like relatively how much B3 land we have?
Is there any
There are
B3 left?
several B3 districts, but they're all fairly small. I think Yogi's and the old Clark Phillips bus area are the two largest pieces of land in the B3 that would be potentially reused.
Okay. Any further questions?
I had a question, but it
Yes.
was just answered. Thank you.
Oh, okay, great, any other questions from the floor? Great, thank you. Seeing none, Article 11, amend zoning bylaws, self-storage facilities definition. Greg.
Again, since we did not have a use category and we did not have a definition, we had individuals that wanted to come in and have self-storage that would have bathrooms, kitchens, couches, TVs, to make them like
Condos.
man cave. And we were like, no, we don't want additional residential units, this is supposed to be self-storage, so we specifically wrote a definition.
Right.
And our recommendation to the town moderator would be that Articles 10 and 11, since they're both related to self-storage, we would link those at town meeting.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Look at that. You're in good company. Any questions from the floor? All right, seeing none, move on to Article 12, amend zoning map. Greg.
There is the largest piece of B3, which was right on that corner by the Junior, Clark's, Yogi's. A large section of it runs south of Adams Road to Heather Road, along the west side of, and if you look on the back, there's a map that shows it. That area had one restaurant in it, That restaurant has been long since gone, and it's now a new house has been built on that site. The land on either side of it is R3. Everything in there is now residential. It's all R3 anyway, so we were just gonna merge that back into the R3 district.
Just one quick.
Yes, questions from the floor. How about Mark?
Is there any feedback, for any like resistance from the community there, or is everyone supportive?
We mailed, under state law, we don't have to mail,
Right.
but in this particular area, we targeted it. We mailed each of the residents, notice that we were gonna change it, et cetera. I've had several phone calls. Once I explained why we were doing it, everybody seemed to be in agreement with it.
All set. Any other questions? Oh,
Question.
yeah, yep, go
Is
ahead.
there a reason why it wasn't extended down to Plymouth Ave?
Because it's already R3 along Plymouth
Okay,
Ave.
thank you.
No, that's okay, it doesn't,
It's
and that
hard
was
to-
another surprising thing. The district didn't go all the way through from Ocean Street to Plymouth Ave.
Yeah.
It went like 3/4 of the way, but it didn't cover all the houses.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great, thank you. Any other questions from the floor?
Just a follow-up question on it. Is there, with the zoning change, would there be any difference to the tax base that those current owners would be paying to the town?
I don't believe so. I mean, they were residential uses. Even though it was a B3 district, it was just that one restaurant. Everything else was residential.
Thank you.
All set. Any further questions from the floor? Seeing none, move on to Article 13, amend zoning bylaws, Dover Amendment. Greg?
So the educational, in the table of use, educational purposes for the land owned or leased by the Commonwealth and or its agency or religious sect or, we can't say that word, domination?
Denomination.
Denomination.
Damnation. I think that's the opposite.
So we're gonna skip that word, Tommy, by nonprofit. So this language fully complies with the Dover Amendment, which is an educational exemption under state law. So we were just getting ourselves to be fully compliant with that amendment.
Might want to spell that phonetically later on at the meeting, so just a thought. Any questions from the floor? All right, seeing none, Article 13, amend zoning bylaws, Dover Amendment, accessory units. Article 14.
Article 14 and Article 15 both cover residential accessory apartments, so again, we would recommend they would be linked. Article 14 is changing the table of use. So it was a special permit, and we're now showing on the table of use that it would be permitted in those districts. I don't believe we changed any of the districts. It was just what was special permit we made to permit.
Great, thank you. Questions from the floor?
So I did have, I might be wrong, because I checked the old districts, and it looks like it used to be special permit in B1 and B2 and PMUD, but I might be wrong. I just would want to double check to see if we didn't shift that. But is this mostly because, otherwise I had to go to the zoning board and,
So
it's never
currently, yes,
really,
if you wanted an accessory apartment, you would go to the zoning.
Right.
board of appeals.
and I don't think the zoning board's ever turned one of these down ever, so,
No, they granted variances to allow them.
right.
All set, Mark?
The Housing Choice Act favors the creation of accessory apartments by right, which, by the way,
Actually, MBTA communities law does too.
right, so this is one of those unusual zoning bylaw changes that'll be passed only by a majority vote.
Or we could just go with the regular vote. We're pretty good at getting 2/3.
You'll get 2/3 on this.
Okay. Any other questions from the floor? Seeing none, move on to Article 15, amend zoning bylaws, accessory units.
So that was just to change the actual language where it said special permit with zoning board of appeals to the building commissioner's review. We did take out at the end, transfer of ownership. You don't have to go in if you sell the property. You don't have to, a new owner does not have to go in for it as well. If it's already got its permitted accessory apartment, it's good. And you don't have to come back every year to recertify. So we got rid of some of the paperwork side of it, again, to make it easier.
Thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, move on to Article 16, amend zoning bylaws, street banners.
So on the street banners, this started as something from both Grant Rock Village Associations. But in discussions, we decided that it shouldn't be just for Brant Rock, that community service banners should be anywhere in town. And so the modification is to add a new paragraph B for street banners. And it basically gives you size, dimension, et cetera, and you go through the board, select board to get that permit.
Any questions from the floor? Keith?
Yeah, who's gonna monitor it? There are signs, especially during elections, that nobody ever checks.
Well, this isn't political.
No, I know that, but if someone has the wrong size, who's gonna check?
It would be your, the
Select board.
select board would get the phone call, and then the building commissioner would be sent out to double check.
Okay, so nobody really is checking initially, unless someone complains, right?
Select board will see a plan.
Okay.
Question.
Yes.
Is there a definition for community service announcement in the bylaw?
That paragraph kind of covers what you can do with it.
All set, Mark?
Talking about content?
2A and 2B, like what constitutes a community service announcement?
We don't have a definition yet.
I just get, like, I get all these, like, toxic bumper stickers I'm sure every driver would think is a community service announcement.
So if I may, I mean, it says with the approval of the select board, so it would be, I would assume, the select board's
And it just, it
determination
feels
of
like it,
whether,
yeah. Just feels like it puts the select board in a position to evaluate content, which we wouldn't want them doing. If there was a definition of community service that defined it the way we wanted, it might help.
Well, I'm glad we have a Crackerjack Advisory Board member handling Article 16, so we're good to
so
go.
just additionally, so like, is there, if they would have to apply to the select board to put such a sign, a banner up?
Yeah.
So,
So you go through that. The original thought from both village associations was they wanted welcome to Brant Rock banners on the poles in the Esplanade. But we have arts festivals and everything else in other parts of town, or lots, you know, that type of thing, and this allows whatever that special
Yeah.
event is to have a community service banner, and that's where this came from.
Gotcha.
We,
Okay.
the planning board tries to stay away from the sign bylaw,
Should I say that?
but this was a special request, so we put it forward.
Okay, question from the floor? Hold on, question in the back? Did you have a question? Or you, okay, great.
Yeah, there's, on the second line, it says with the approval of the select board, then it says of. I guess that should be or, after receiving a permit. What, I call something possible?
On the second line in B?
A?
A. Oh, we weren't changing A. We're only adding B.
Oh, okay,
What?
but I just wondered if
Is that,
Warren,
thank you for the question.
It might
Bob?
be, it might be just a misprint.
Okay,
We'll figure that out. I don't have the bylaw. in
thank you.
front of me.
We're gonna look into that.
So the understanding is that the select board or the building commissioner can establish their terms in terms of fees, potential fees or duration, et cetera.
Michael, do you have that answer?
Yes, you.
Yes, yes. Select board
Yes,
would
yes.
determine that. Mr. Chairman, one other thing, even
Yes,
if
you-
this passes, there's another facet in order before they can put the banners up. Even if the board approved them, then there has to be, Verizon owns most of the poles, Eversource owns a few. There's a legal agreement with them about insurance and some other stuff that has to be followed also.
Great.
It's not part of this, but it's just
Sure.
so people are aware of that.
Great, thank you. Yes,
So, I didn't realize until just now, we had bold. It doesn't show bold where we added or changed text. The strikeouts do show, but not the bold. All we were changing was B. We were not touching A.
Okay.
That was already in existence. And a lot of the text and stuff,
Right.
we had strikeout and bold specifically, so everybody knew in what we were talking about, this is all we're changing.
Gotcha. But in A, what Mr. Pasevich pointed out, that may be incorrect.
It is in the original text from what I have.
Get lawyers involved. Okay, any further questions on Article 16? Seeing none, moving on to Article 17, which is a community preservation article. Who's going to handle that? Is that you, Michael, or is that, do we have anybody from CPC here?
They're not, but I can, if you want, I can go,
Well, let-
very quickly, it's a
Yeah,
standard.
quickly, be great.
It's the standard CPC article, it's the set-asides for historic open space, affordable housing. There's administrative cost set-aside of $125. Then there's the projects, the GAR Hall for $140, $48,000 for open space and recreation CPA revenues, $48,000, $136 from CPA revenues for townwide ball fields and playgrounds, $136,000, $65,000 for capital improvements, Marshfield Hills Playground, $37,000 for Peter Igo tennis courts, and $20,000 for basketball and multi-courts at Peter Igo.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? All right, seeing none, moving on to Article 18, amend general bylaw regarding the town meeting lottery. Michael?
So basically, what this does is it takes resolutions and petition articles, and they go at the end of the town meeting business. So they would be the last items taken up.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Seeing none, going to move on. Yes, question? Name and address, please.
Joe Pasevich, Wilson Road. Any opinion from town council on the legality of that? Equal protection?
Citizens petition articles can be placed anywhere the selectmen decide right now. So this will place them at the end, and that's where it's customarily done on every town meeting warrant that I've ever, for any town meeting that I've ever attended in 30 years. The selectmen always have put them at the end. This will just codify that practice.
Yeah, but it's not talking about the placement in the warrant, it's talking about the consideration. In other words, after.
Well, I
after
think
all
that,
the
I think in the,
articles, all the-
Hold on a second, hold on, please. Let him answer. Thank you.
I think in the context of what considered means here is placed at the end of the warrant.
Did that answer your question?
That's where they typically go, Joe.
I know, but when the warrant, when the lottery is, when the articles are chosen by lottery, why aren't citizen petition articles subjected to the same rule, where they could come up first or halfway through or somewhere else?
Bob, do you have an answer to that question?
No, I guess I don't. I mean, resolutions are always at the end.
Oh, resolutions, yes.
Okay, but I think this is just saying that those types of articles will typically be at the end. And I think it's yes or no. If the town wants them to be at the end, they will be. If they don't, then the citizens petition articles would fall in a lottery position. The resolutions will never.
Yeah, what's happening lately, though, is some resolutions are now being presented as petition articles. That's happened a couple of times now in the last couple of years.
Well,
So that's like a way
I mean,
that's like a way
a-
of getting around.
a resolution is a resolution, regardless of whether it's labeled an article or not. It's a resolution. So they'll always be at the end. They always should be at the end. Whether people want citizens petition articles to be at the end like proposed resolutions will be up to the voters to decide at town meeting.
Great.
What happens to resolutions then that are presented on the fly at the very end?
To do with resolutions?
Those will still be at the end.
It just says petition.
Okay, those are resolutions. All set, great, thank you. Any more questions from the floor? Seeing none, move on to Article, what, I'm sorry, go ahead, Don?
Don Gibson, 815 Union Street, Town Moderator. I wanted to support the opinion and interpretation of our town council And I can tell you that these petition articles and the resolution articles should be at the end of the meeting. When you have a $109 million operating budget and a $2 million capital budget, every article I know is important to its proponent, but it's important that we deal with the business of town and to get the town to function. These petition articles will be given a fair vote and fair consideration at the end of the meeting, and I'm very content and I'm supportive of the logic of the select board in this regard. I also would like to just comment that it says here, town meeting articles will be voted by lottery for articles following the operating budget articles. That phrase is a little loose. I've always interpreted that to include the capital budget too. So when it says operating budget and the capital budget, that those articles are not within the lottery. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Yes,
I just, Joe Pasevich, Willisburg, I just want to comment on the gentleman's statement just now that the petition articles seem to not be the business of the town, whereas $109 million.
I didn't say that.
So-and-so capital budget is the business of the town. How is a citizen's petition article not the business of the town? Who's in charge of the town? The people. So a petition article is the business of the town. So I just want to make a comment to that effect.
thank you very much. Any more questions from the floor?
Well,
Really?
The answer to the question, if I might, Mr. Chairman, is if we don't pass a $109 million operating budget or a $2.9 million capital budget, the town can't function, period.
Gotcha, great, thank you. Moving on to Article 19, establishing an affordable housing trust and a housing trust fund. Michael.
So this will allow the town to have a municipal affordable trust fund and a municipal affordable housing trust to provide for the creation and preservation of affordable housing in municipalities for the benefit of low and moderate income households and for the funding of community housing in Marshfield. Trust terms will be defined by bylaw adopted after the approval of this provision. The reason that we're going this route is when the Marshfield Housing Partnership was created, we did try to do a trust way back then, and town meeting, because Marshfield Housing Partnership was something new, they wanted to see how that was gonna operate, how they were gonna create affordable housing, were they gonna be all building affordable housing, or were they gonna be converting housing units here? So there was a dilemma for the housing partnership, and we had to find some place for the money to be stored. And the housing authority has been holding the money for the housing partnership. They also do the lotteries for us. It's become messy. They didn't want to hold our money, so that's what precipitated moving forward with these articles now is the place that used to hold the funds no longer wants to hold them. And they're not really housing authority is really not an arm of town government. We do have, I think, one appointee on there, governor appoints, and then there's a local person that gets elected. So, hoping the town meeting supports this so we can continue with managing the funds and money that's taken in for the creation of affordable housing.
Great, thank you. Any questions from the floor? Yes.
Joe Pasevich, Willisburg, does anybody know how much money the housing authority is now holding? I noticed there's like a $240,000 plus set aside from the CPA article in this warrant.
Michael, do you have that answer?
I don't, Mr. Pasevich, but I will get it for you tomorrow and email it to you, if you would like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Great.
I'd like to know that. And also I'd like to know, maybe with regards to this Article 19 and then 20, is there some way to explain what the relationship going forward will be between the housing partnership, the housing authority, and the housing trust?
Michael, do you have that answer?
Well, there's a relationship between Article 19 and Article 20. The housing authority, there is no relationship with the affordable housing, Marshfield Affordable Housing Committee. Housing Authority has their own properties that they manage, Grace Ryder and T-Rock Lane, two prominent ones that they have, so they manage those properties. Marshfield right now is being managed by the Quincy Housing Authority. James Marathis, who happens to be a Marshfield resident, is the manager of Quincy. They now manage Marshfield properties. So there is no connection. It's a separate entity, the Housing Authority.
Great, thank you. All set with that?
Yeah, it still remains to be seen. I don't know if they're gonna be competing or what. You know, is the housing trust now gonna acquire and manage property also?
I don't know, I don't think that's beyond the scope of the article, though. So I'm
Mr.
gonna-
Chairman?
Yes.
Mr. Pasevich and I had a brief conversation beforehand. I would think that the role of the housing partnership will be subsumed by the Affordable Housing Trust if it passes. It's more properly structured, it has the ability to hold property, it has the ability to purchase property, and manage money, which that's never really been the mission or role of the housing partnership. The Housing Authority, which is only quasi-municipal, it exists because the governor appoints a representative, and there's a tenants group that it's really separate from the town. But this will, I assume, be Marshfield's housing, affordable housing arm going forward.
Great, thank you. Seeing no questions from the floor, we're going to move on to Article, we have a question.
Thanks. So was this, what precipitated this now? What we heard was that the Housing Authority no longer wants to hold the funding.
That is correct.
So did they communicate that to the select board?
Yes,
So that's what precipitated this article at
that's
this time?
correct. Yep.
So in terms of establishing and maintaining the trust, like, is there an additional cost to the town to establish and maintain that separate trust?
I can answer that. So typically what happens, and I represent two other municipal affordable housing trusts, one in Duxbury, and I represent the one in Norwell. They're typically funded with the housing portion of the CPA funds on an annual basis. Plus, they receive gifts, devises from wills and things like that. And that's how they've been funded in the past. The housing partnership can't really receive those funds at this particular moment because it doesn't really have its own ability to have money. So I think that's how you'll see it funded in the future. And it's very most of the communities in the South Shore, other than Marshfield, have already adopted these, and they work very well to create affordable housing.
That was not me, by the way.
So my question is a little bit more around the cost of administration and maintenance of the trust itself.
Well, right now, we have a housing coordinator,
Yes.
and I assume that a portion of the money that she's paid could be funded by the CPA set aside for affordable housing. So that's what I would assume would happen.
And that is how she's funded, yeah.
Okay. It won't really change, I guess, but she may become the administrator of the Municipal Affordable Housing Trust.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Question for the floor, yes.
So the housing authority communicated to the selectmen that they don't want to be involved with holding the money anymore. I'm just wondering, how was that communicated? Did they have a meeting or something and vote on it? Was there a letter that was sent to the selectmen that we could see?
James Marathis, who's the executive director, periodically comes to some of the partnership meeting, and on 3 different occasions, he said that they no longer want to hold the money.
Gotcha, great.
So the executive manager,
Executive director of the Housing Authority.
I thought he was a manager, not a director, but whatever it is, so he verbally communicated that.
That is correct.
Scope of this. Okay, all set, great, thank you.
One more question, sorry.
Yes.
So if town meeting does not, support this article, is there a remaining, obligation by the housing authority to maintain the funds?
No.
So if town meeting does not support this, and the housing authority no longer wants to hold the money, what does town do?
I'm going to defer to town council on that.
We're probably going to have to enter into some type of intermunicipal agreement with a regional housing authority.
Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Seeing no questions from the floor, I'm going to move on to Article 20. Will these be linked, by the way?
They should be, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
19 needs to be done first and then 20.
Yep, gotcha, okay. Amend general bylaw to include affordable housing trust. Michael?
So this is where the management of the trust comes in. This is the 5 December member appointed Board of Trustees, provides for regular meetings of the trust, describes the powers of the Board of Trustees, provides that the town treasurer collector be the custodian of its funds, provides for a duty to report and account for the affairs of the trust, addresses the status of the trustees as special municipal employees who are not to be compensated, and provide the recording of documents relating to the existence of the state of trust and a potentially unlimited duration of trust within the town succeeding as to any assets.
Great, thank you. You have a question?
I-
Questions from the floor?
I don't have
Yes.
a question, I do have a comment,
Okay.
though. I just want to express my appreciation on behalf of the advisory board for the detail that went into this and the controls that it does show that we're putting a lot of controls in place with the control of this money.
Thank you. Actually, all the credit goes to town council who drafted it.
I kind of figured.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the floor? All right, seeing none, we're going to move on to Article 21, which is a petition from Peter Igo Park. Is there anybody from the Friends of Peter Igo Park here? All right, seeing that there are not, we're going to move on, and that actually concludes this joint meeting for the special and annual town meeting. The advisory board will stay in session for a couple of minutes just for some housekeeping things. Thank you all for coming, appreciate it. Thank you much, bye-bye.